Welcome, students. Let's get right into it. Today's explainer is a masterclass on India's socio-political fabric. We're diving deep into something that literally defines the psyche of our entire nation, language. You see, here, language isn't just some benign tool for saying hello. No, it's the very foundation of power, of identity, and quite literally survival in the modern Indian state. Just look at this stark paradox right off the bat. On paper, the Indian state officially recognizes exactly 22 scheduled languages in the Constitution. But out there in the real world, the People's Linguistic Survey documented a staggering 780 living languages. 780! That massive gaping hole between state recognition and lived reality isn't just some administrative typo, right? It's a deeply political construction, one that dictates who exactly gets resources, representation, and respect.
So here's our agenda for today's explainer. We'll be moving through 6 core areas: the illusion of boundaries, the Hindi umbrella, Southern resistance, fluid tongues, silent extinction, and future crises. Let's jump in. Starting with Section 1, the illusion of boundaries, sovereignty of territory versus identity.
All right, to really grasp this illusion, we have to rewind to the States Reorganisation Act of 1956. This policy was essentially a double-edged sword. It built on the idea that language equals state, giving huge communities a political home. But here's the catch. It took historically fluid, messy, beautiful linguistic borders and hardened them into rigid administrative lines. It created this permanent friction between the state's rigid sovereignty of territory and the people's constantly evolving sovereignty of identity. A perfect, ongoing example of this tension, the Bilgawan border dispute between Maharashtra and Karnataka. It's a clash over overlapping linguistic zones that has been bleeding for over 60 years now.
Which brings us directly to Section 2, the Hindi umbrella construction, hegemony through enumeration.
Now, this Hindi umbrella concept is absolutely crucial. It's probably the most consequential political framework in our modern history. The census category for Hindi actively absorbs totally distinct, vibrant regional languages, think Bhojpuri or Maithili, and basically downgrades them to mere dialects. And why does that matter? Because numbers equal power. This enumeration gives a massive structural advantage, translating into more Lok Sabha seats and historically favoring candidates in UPSC's aims. And remember, Hindi is the official language of the Union, not the national language. That's a huge distinction people often miss. But it's creating this fascinating internal crisis, where the North is essentially sacrificing its own rich linguistic plurality just to consolidate centralized Union power.
Moving on to Section 3, the South's linguistic resistance, institutionalized defense.
What's really fascinating here is the sheer historical depth of the South's pushback. If you look at the timeline, it reveals this deep-seated perception that the Union is constantly trying to standardize cultural identity. I mean, look at 1965. When the constitutional deadline to phase out English hit, Tamil Nadu completely erupted. The student agitations were so intense that the center literally had to back down and guarantee that English would continue to be used. This wasn't just petty regionalism. They saw it as a literal defense of a 2,000-year-old civilizational identity against structural overreach. You can really see this lingering friction in the three-language formula. Notice the massive asymmetry in this educational compromise. Down south, students bear the burden of learning Hindi, along with English and their regional mother tongue. But up in the Hindi belt, that mandated third language is almost always just another Indo-Aryan language, like Sanskrit. The reality on the ground is that northern students rarely, if ever, learn Dravidian languages like Tamil or Telugu, and that asymmetry keeps the federal friction very much alive.
All right, Section 4, fluid tongues, rigid scripts, the unrecognized intersections. You know, the living, breathing reality of India actually thrives in these totally invisibilized contact languages. Take Hindustani. It's the actual, spoken mix of Hindi and Urdu that folks in the Indo-Gangetic Plain naturally speak every single day. Or Nagamese. It's practically no one's mother tongue, but it is the absolute essential bridge language for Nagaland's diverse tribes. The irony is, politically, these languages don't legally exist in the 8th schedule. No legal standing. Yet they serve as crucial interceptional bridges for millions. They are the true organic fabric of Indian communication, flying completely under the radar of state bureaucracy. And when it comes to writing these languages down, the crucial takeaway is that scripts are never just technical alphabets here. They are deeply, deeply non-neutral. Take the spoken language of Hindi and Urdu. In everyday conversation, they're virtually identical. But writing that exact same spoken language in Devanagari versus Nastaliq, that carries immense religious and political weight. I mean, that seemingly technical difference was literally enough to partition communities and nations. On the flip side, look at the old Cheeky script invented for Santali. That was a profound act of civilizational assertion, a total refusal to borrow an outsider's script just to make sure their unique identity remained completely intact.
This takes us to Section 5, the silent linguistic extinction, epistemic violence.
250. Just let that number sink in for a second. According to expansive surveys, 250 distinct Indian languages have quietly gone extinct since independence. We are living through one of the world's great ongoing linguistic catastrophes. And the worst part? It's largely invisible, simply because these languages belong to tribal and rural communities who don't have a loud political voice or officially recognized scripts. And when these languages die, guys, it's not just words disappearing. We lose what researchers call ecological grammar. This is the highly unique, totally non-translatable vocabulary that defines a tribal community's deep, encoded relationship with their forest and natural environment. So when these communities get displaced, they don't just lose their homes, they suffer massive epistemic violence. Their ancient, oral-based local knowledge systems are literally erased from the earth.
We really have to understand the cold, hard political economic reality driving this. Resource extraction actually requires linguistic homogenation. Think about it. It is significantly easier for the state to displace a community for a new development or a mining project if that community has already been forced into linguistic assimilation. By stripping away their native tongues, their highly specific, forest-based knowledge loses absolutely all legal and social standing. It's a tragically efficient administrative maneuver.
Finally, Section 6, future crises, representation, AI, and urbanization.
We are staring down the barrel of a massive crisis with the looming 2026 delimitation exercise. Right now, southern states are gripped by this proxy sovereignty fear. Because they successfully controlled their population growth, they're now facing the very real threat of losing proportional political power in the Lok Sabha to the vastly more populous northern states. Now, to counter this, the union is proposing strategic reassurances, like a 50% seat increase model to decouple population from power. But make no mistake, at its core, this is a massive linguistic political crisis over representation and regional sovereignty.
Meanwhile, massive internal migration is making the old linguistic state model completely obsolete. Just look at our cities. Mumbai's slums alone are home to speakers of over 30 distinct languages. Delhi's labor force survives on this rapid, chaotic blend of Bhojpuri, Bangla, Odia, Nepali, and Punjabi. In Bengaluru, the tech sector hums along in a fluid mix of English, Kannada, Tamil, and Telugu. We're creating these vibrant hybrid urban identities that completely bypass the outdated rural framework of one state, one language. And frankly, our current policies haven't even begun to accommodate this reality.
And as India races headfirst into a multilingual AI future, we hit a brand new digital dilemma. Right now, we're rushing to digitize the oral traditions of marginalized communities, like Santali and Gandhi. But there's a huge trap here. These collective cultural assets are essentially being extracted as raw data to train big tech's AI models. The severe risk we're facing is that these algorithms will arbitrarily standardize these fragile languages, and do so without ever giving the actual source communities any stewardship or governance over their own heritage. Which brings us to the ultimate tragedy of our entire linguistic framework. It's perfectly captured in this quote. India's multilingualism is a resource being treated as a problem. For decades, the state's deep, overriding anxiety over national unity has paradoxically stopped us from developing administrative and educational systems that actually harness our brilliant diversity, rather than just trying to suppress it. So, I leave you with this final thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. As we rapidly approach the 2026 delimitation and navigate this wild new frontier of the AI age, how will the Indian nation-state evolve? Will we finally build systems to protect and nurture our remaining linguistic soul and accommodate our true chaotic multilingual reality? Or will we just keep forcing this vibrant diversity into rigid, homogenizing boxes until the fault lines finally fracture? Thank you for joining me in this masterclass. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.